to pick up on one of Martin's key points, the company insight, what is possible and the added value of the EIT, I have the great privilege to invite to the floor Rajai Aghabi. Thank you, Rajai. Rajai is the founder and the Chief Executive Officer of EOLOS, Floating LIDAR Solutions. And Rajai, you were very heavily involved with the InnoEnergy EIT, and you're going to tell us a little bit about your background and your context here with particularly the wind energy measurement product, which came to be as a consequence of this. Thank you, Rajai, for joining us. Could I maybe start just by asking a question for you to open up with us? Can you tell us very briefly a little bit about yourself and, of course, about your company? And tell us a little bit about how you first got involved with the EIT community.
Okay.
Rajai.
Thank you very much, Alison, and thank you to the EIT for giving me the opportunity of sharing my experience. I hope it does help a little bit to see an example of how did it all came about. Well, my background, very briefly, I'm a physicist. I studied in Barcelona, and I've always been specialized in wind energy since the beginning. So I was always in the sector, and well, an opportunity to actually start EOLOS, which I'll now describe a little bit further, came about, and I decided to take it. EOLOS basically is a company. We offer services to the offshore wind market. In particular, we offer wind measurements at remote offshore locations with a technology that we developed within an innovation project of the EIT. How did I start with the EIT, and in particular with InnoEnergy? Well, I was after a few years of working in Northern Europe, specializing in offshore wind, I came back to Barcelona and I started working for what was the Catalan Institute of Energy Research, one of the founders of InnoEnergy back in 2010. So I had always been sort of in that ecosystem of InnoEnergy, especially from the start, in which everything was sort of slowly being defined. That's how I got to know InnoEnergy.
Okay, good. And tell us a bit about what that engagement was like for you, from someone who obviously had not been engaged with the community before. What was that engagement like, and what helped with that engagement to allow you to make the progress that you've made?
Okay, I'll explain a little bit how the story went. As I said, I was working in the Catalan Institute for Energy Research. One of my colleagues had an idea, which was actually develop the technology we have on the slide. He said, well, why don't we develop a technology that can measure wind at remote offshore locations in a way which is much more cost efficient than what is actually on the market. There were some technologies, but being a research institute as it was, had the idea of why don't we develop something which is better, which is focused. We know about wind, so let's develop a technology. And that's when they approached InnoEnergy. The project got funded, and the technology and the whole, let's say, technology started being developed. That was 2011. I joined the project 2 years after, 2013. So I was not behind the idea of developing this. It was one of my colleagues. And basically, I joined the project in a moment in which 2013, for reasons that are not part of the discussion now, there was a budget allocated for validating this system, so turning it commercial and ending up with a project. And this budget, well, was no longer available for the project. So we were in a situation in which it had to be decided, what do we do? Do we stop the project? Do we continue? And that's when I got into business development to find a way of how could we end up taking this to the market, which was final goal of the project, having a product that could enter the market and not simply a research that we would basically store in a drawer afterwards. After long discussions and negotiations with the project partners, we realized that the best way or the most efficient way of doing that was creating a specialized vehicle company that could do this. So that is, we started a spin-off, which I led, and we transferred the technology rights to actually exploit this and followed the way of raising money, getting into the market, validating the product, generating a team, etc. So that was the story. And as I said, it was not the main goal in the beginning of the project. The project had other ideas for it to end, but we had an issue like we've had after that many throughout the business. And that's when, I approached the EIT, InnoEnergy, and said, well, look, we have to find a way. The idea would be to let's start a spin-off. And that's when we sort of bridged from an innovation project all the way to what at the time was called Business Creation Highway, which is basically the entrepreneurial side of what InnoEnergy was offering. And that bridge was what all started. So we had support on the project itself, but then all the way to actually starting out a company and, well, up to now.
Okay, that's extremely helpful. And I think understanding a little bit about the history and that trajectory, was that trajectory something that you anticipated in terms of those steps and those stages? Could you have predicted you would have taken that pathway in the absence of having worked with the EIT community?
No, me in particular, no. I didn't expect the way it actually went. As I said, I actually joined the project, and that is significant. But I joined the project afterwards, actually to do, as I said, business development, to find a way of how could we actually raise extra funds and manage to take this to the market, create a commercial product, find clients, find money, et cetera, and actually be where we are right now. No, that was not anticipated. And it was actually on those discussions, which I do believe, and that's one of the main reasons that I came here and that I'm here, I do believe that that flexibility, that one-to-one talk that I was able to have and other team members were able to have within InnoEnergy on adapting to changing situation, which in the end, that's business after all, adapting to those and finding, let's say, out-of-the-box solutions to those challenges that came, that managed to sort of walk that path. So it was not a pre-established path, it was a path that we sort of built it together and managed well to be where we are right now, as I said.
Excellent, that's very helpful. And taking, I suppose, your experience specifically within InnoEnergy, could you perhaps try to generalize somewhat to tell us a little bit about what do entrepreneurs and innovators actually need?
Mm-hmm. That is, well, I guess there's many things that we need, going from funding, from a good team, there's really many things, but I think that was, for me, is most relevant in my particular case would be the fact of actually joining those two words, so joining innovation and joining entrepreneurship. I'll explain my example. I never really thought or had the idea of becoming an entrepreneur myself. I always had the idea, always thought that being an entrepreneur, you had to have a great idea, you had to be a genius, right? I had those examples, you had to be an Elon Musk, or you had to be, you had to come up with some Facebook or some really great idea or some nice, new form of energy. So, but then I realized that's really not the case. There's a very big pool of talented people out there in research centers, in universities, that have great ideas. And actually what I did in my particular case is catching one of those great ideas and actually helping that great idea take it to the market. But as I said, and I think that's relevant, I was not the person behind the idea that we have on the picture right now. I was somebody which took that, and basically the innovation was actually being able to take that to the market, make a business out of that. So being able to join those two things, I think that has a great added value, and I do believe that that's one of the things that InnoEnergy has really matched to do.
Excellent. Okay, and going back to some of the points that others have been making so far around the knowledge triangle, a critical element of that being, of course, the education side of that. Can you give us a little bit of an insight into how that has worked from your experience of being involved with EIT? Okay,
yeah. I would broaden that question into what has been really that great added value that we've got. I was having a little interview before, and I was mentioning basically three main points. For me, one of the great things, which is a bit of an intangible but has been crucial in my case. I was a physicist. I did get some business background, but I never run a business or anything alike. And it's not easy. A lot of challenges. And maybe the first 2 years I was each day waking up and wondering whether it really made sense to take this. It was really doing something which I was not sort of fooling myself into, that there actually was a business out of this. It was challenging, raising money, getting first clients, etc. So one of the things that really helped me is what I would name as mentoring, which is meaning it's basically having a pool of really knowledgeable people that have been in the business, that it's generally people from the sector that are assigned to you and that basically help you, aid you throughout the way, and give you guidance. And that is definitely something really helpful that allows you to make sometimes very tough decisions. And that you see that, they're backed up by experience in the end. So that's one thing. Second thing would be commitment. Commitment all throughout the way. Sometimes things will go well, sometimes things don't go that well. So having the commitment and that flexibility I was talking about before, of finding sometimes out-of-the-box solutions that are not pre-established, in order to, if you believe in the business, take it forward. That has been definitely something which has really helped. And the third one, going back to your particular question, would be that community, which understood as having that pool of, from one side, talented students that can join you to develop technology, to give you a hand, to give you a fresh, new view on what you're doing. That has been helpful. But also having a pan-European set of offices. That is something which not most incubators have. So it's not only bringing money, but actually, we got our first 2 contracts because we had the possibility of having access. Well, we got our biggest contract, 1.5 million contract in Poland, and that was thanks to, having a backup over there, an office over there. It was a public tender in Poland. We were 3 people at the time. That's undoable if you're by yourself, but you have an office over there you can back up with, ask, can give you a hand, can put you, I don't know, simple things like getting your translator straight away when you have a meeting, or many other things of getting all the documents in place, all administration, etc. That open doors, and that eventually is what you need when you're small and you're willing to grow. So that community has definitely helped us to be where we are right now.
Excellent. That's a really helpful insight there, and I think perhaps one that could be generalized in terms of the framework of support which is there. You talked about the pool of experts, the mentors, the guidance, and how that supports decision making, which is often very tough.
Yeah.
And then the commitment which that helps to foster and generate, which of course brings a confidence with that, and that wider pan-European community, having access to that which is frankly unique. And certainly we've been hearing that from our speakers before. That's incredibly helpful and a really useful insight. I'd like to ask you, Rajai, can you tell us, just to give us some further inspiration for today, what's on the horizon for you and for your team? Where are you going next? What are you planning to do?
So right now, the situation in which we're in now, the company was founded in 2014, just after when the project ended. So we overlapped. And just when the product ended, basically we took over. And in 2015, we validated the product. 2016 was our first commercial year. We managed to get 2 contracts in place with a portfolio project of about 2.2 million euros. And then 2017 was an execution year. And of course, building up upon our reference to bring in more commercial products. So we had, our first installation, and we've been running commercially and successfully our first full project. Having one of those systems in the middle of, the French Bretagne or in the middle of the North Sea, it's quite challenging. So we've managed to overcome that. And then this 2018 is basically a year of growth. We've managed to settle ourselves in Europe. We've got a few projects in here, and basically our new goal is it's to expand internationally on the one side, and then we're closely looking at potentially trying to, with our product, trying to diversify, find new ways of find new revenue streams. So basically now we're in a growth mode, and that's what we're looking at, and hope that we continue being successful and we can continue to tell this story a few years from now.
Good. So bold and ambitious, international, growth, expansion. Okay, I think all of the words that will have resonance in the room today. Rajai, thank you very much. That's been incredibly inspiring and insightful. And of course, we wish you well with the next steps of your venture. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Rajai.
Thank you very much.